We started developing somewhat of a speciality in the building and construction industry. Even before COVID, this is an industry that's always struggled with a lot of financial pressures. There's ever-growing prices in relation to insurance and materials, wages, interacting in a marketplace with regulators, unions, and an ever-changing system of securities and licensing, mean that it is a particularly difficult industry at times to be able to trade a business in and generate profits. But there's also a background here of people who are operating businesses who might be incredibly good builders, but have never had any real training in how to run a business or be a director of a company, and therefore get themselves into circumstances financially that maybe they didn't necessarily understand along the way. Businesses, particularly at the SME space, are businesses that started out with a builder who wanted to start a business that provided valuable services, but that business was them. As the business grew, they didn't necessarily have any of the training in how to scale up a business and meet all the regulatory requirements. No understanding necessarily about tax and statutory liabilities, directors' duties, the impact of personal guarantees, and the significant personal exposure that directors have in businesses that are financially distressed. And because that business started in such a way that it was them, and usually or quite often has their name attached to it, the opportunity or the requirement to seek assistance from someone like myself is caught up in the idea of personal failure and blame. Even though in most circumstances, a lot of the reason that the business is failing is generally beyond their control. And financial factors playing such a huge role. So early in my time at O'Brien Palmer, we took an appointment of a formwork company. That formwork company had been operating on the UTS construction site down at Broadway. And this business became financially distressed by the failure or the collapse of the crane on that building site in December 2014, which halted work on site for more than 2 months. This business was still required to meet the costs of the employees that were no longer on site, and its reserves were being significantly depleted at the time that the insurance company started to deny liability under the insurance policies, noting that the collapse of the crane and the circumstances that led to it were perhaps conceived of being an act of God and therefore not something that insurance would cover. The director came to us advising that there was nothing left in the business and it needed help. And the circumstances can be particularly difficult because the major assets of the company are tied up in the security of projects. However, in what seemed like hopeless circumstances to the directors, we took the administration appointment. We negotiated with the developer, the time was Lend-Lease, and we negotiated with the CFMEU to secure support from the staff and from representatives of the ATO who were live to the financial pressures being placed on these businesses for circumstances beyond their control, to be able to secure a deed of company arrangement that allowed the business to continue trading and to go on to trade and operate on the Barangaroo development thereafter, and provide a significantly better return to any of the creditors than would have been if the company had been liquidated, noting that almost no realisations would have been available if that had proceeded. So that business went on to successfully generate significant profits working with Lend-Lease again in the Barangaroo development, and is a really fantastic example of how if we can get people to sit down around the table and have a chat about what's going on and the best outcomes for everybody, businesses actually can be saved when it's thought to be hopeless. The thing that most attracted me to working in insolvency was the really broad variety of work that's involved in running a business in this space. Not only does it require a lot of technical knowledge of both accounting and the law, it requires a commitment to comply with all of those regulations and legislation, the ethical code of professional practice that ARETA has out there that governs so much of the way in which we operate. We are working with stakeholders and employees and significant people who have lost a lot of money or stand to lose a lot of money. So a bit of empathy and understanding of the pressures that these people are under that bring them into contact with us is really, really important. People don't understand how the system works, are often blindly relying upon us to act in their best interest, in compliance with our duties, are seeking to understand, but mostly they're seeking to find a way to recover the money that they've lost and to address the financial pressures that such losses cause. So there's a real empathy and understanding required there to be able to remember that we are providing a service to creditors and to the marketplace, and to not be standoffish in relation to explaining how the system operates or is meant to operate, and the reason for the outcomes that creditors are expected to be satisfied with. I, as the managing partner here, now have approximately 30 people working for us, and some of those are friends who I've been working with for over a decade. Some of them are junior staff who have recently entered the profession in result of the recent uptick in insolvency work in the post-COVID environment. And I really enjoy working with all staff to develop their knowledge and understanding, their practices and procedures within the office, and generally support them as they develop an interest in the industry. You really need to be a people person because we're dealing with people all day, every day. And a little bit of resilience. Okay, it is stressful. The people that we're dealing with all have their own agendas, their own pressures. They're all looking for outcomes. And when you're an insolvency practitioner, it's your job to balance out all those competing pressures and all those competing outcomes in line with the priorities that are established by the law. And you're doing so in an environment where we also have to make some money for ourselves. That's why we're here, to pay for our staff and the like. So all those pressures come together and the job can be really, really stressful. So it's important to make sure that you're managing that stress appropriately and still delivering the necessary outcomes for stakeholders, regulators, and the business. I grew up in the far north coast of New South Wales. I moved to Sydney and lived in the Hills District for about 10 years and started high school down here. As I said, I studied law at Macquarie University, and in my early 20s moved to the inner west. Today I am married. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. We live in the Shire. Whilst I never thought that was somewhere where I would end up, I do really love life in the Shire. I understand why they like to call it God's country. You will have seen from a lot of our videos that O'Brien Palmer is a sponsor of the Cronulla Sharks. The long-standing history, until Daniel joined the firm, all of the partners of O'Brien Palmer either grew up in the Shire or, like myself, had moved there. In 2015, when I moved there, the Sharks were looking for corporate sponsors. It was a difficult time for anyone who knows their rugby league history. The club had gone through some dark days, and I signed up to be a corporate partner on behalf of O'Brien Palmer because I love live footy, and living in the Shire, it was close to home and a great place to be. The Sharks went on to win the Premiership in 2016, cementing them as a passion of mine, and to this day I still have corporate box and would be at 90% of all the Sharks home games. So that probably explains why there's such a legacy of Sharks memorabilia around the office that you might see in all of our videos. Everyone probably would have seen my previous videos about why O'Brien Palmer is supportive of ARETA and why I seek to play a role in ARETA. The Australian Restructuring and Solvency Turnaround Association is the industry body for insolvency practitioners. It has created the ethical code of conduct that we all operate under, along with the rules and regulations and legislation. But it also is supportive of the development of the industry. So in my time working with ARETA, I've assisted now former CEO John Winter as we attempted to lobby the government for insolvency law reform, which was a really interesting process of meeting with politicians from both sides of the political spectrum, seeking to push support for law reform. I've been involved in the education processes that ARETA has run, and I've effectively run tutorials at least twice a year for students going through the ARETA Advanced Insolvency Program. So I want to play my role in helping develop the next generation of insolvency practitioners. And I have sat on a number of the boards within ARETA, such as the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force, which is aimed at increasing the participation of women in our industry. People may not know that less than 15% of liquidators around Australia are women, and less than 10 or around 10% of bankruptcy trustees are women, and that's something that I think should be addressed, and have been working on that with some success in the growth of numbers of women involved. and finding ways to reform the industry so that women will stay working in the industry, because whilst there's plenty of women who start careers in insolvency, they tend not to stay. I've been involved in helping set up and run some of the conferences for the small business division of ARETA and the New South Wales state divisions. And so I think it's an opportunity to not only give back to the profession, but also have some voice in how the profession evolves, whilst we remain hopeful that there'll be some law reform, because the Bankruptcy Act was an act of 1966. The Corporations Act of 2001, the landscape in insolvency has changed significantly since those laws were written, and it is probably a really big area where we benefit from law reform. Should that get taken up by the government of the day, I'm hoping to be able to have a role in how that might turn out. What's next for O'Brien Palmer? We're looking always to increase the efficiency with which we perform our jobs here, and so we are constantly looking at improving our processes. I want to continue to grow our network of contacts and in new sectors. That's why we've embraced a diversity in our hiring policy that allows us to meet new people and grow O'Brien Palmer's footprint. It might be interesting, and I'm hopeful that there might be some new O'Brien Palmer partners in the foreseeable future. To date, we have had successes in the regions of the Midwest of New South Wales, and we're looking to grow in that area. And otherwise, I'm looking to just continue to have a bit of an input into the way that the industry develops, and hopefully continue finding new ways to do our job better. The thing I'm most proud of in my career so far is my time at O'Brien Palmer, is how so many of the things that I have talked about today, growing the network, diversifying our workforce, improving our procedures, having a visibility in the profession and not just in this business, have all come together to see that O'Brien Palmer today is more than double the size it was when I joined. It's hopefully a place that people enjoy working. I certainly do get to enjoy working with people who I like and respect. It's a real vibe around here in that hopefully everybody that's here enjoys working here and feels like they're contributing something of value to the profession and the industry as a whole. I'm very grateful to some of the lawyers that I've worked with over the years, who are not just professional contacts but have become friends. You know who you are. Other advisors within the industry, people from auctioneers and valuers, some of whom will or have appeared in this podcast, and certainly more who will hopefully appear over the next coming months. It's not just within O'Brien Palmer, it's the broader network that we operate in, the people who come to our cruise every year as a celebration and a thank you for working with us. I enjoy my job because of the people that I work with and the work that we do. That's enough from me. You will have seen from this video and the other Meet the Team videos that O'Brien Palmer is a place where some really friendly, intelligent people work that are here to help, and hopefully by getting a better understanding of who we are and why we do what we do, people will have less anxiety about reaching out and asking for help and getting some advice when suffering from financial distress, whether it's in their businesses or in their own personal lives. The system isn't meant to be scary and intimidating, and we hope that we can make it less so for you. So don't hesitate to get in touch. Thanks for watching. Yeah, I'm a chronological kind of guy.
Well, let's leave that.
So, yeah. Sorry. Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun. It only felt like 35.
Yeah,
There you go.
That's awesome.